On the surface, Super Hexagon doesn't look like much. The graphics are just shapes, there are only 2 buttons. It looks more like an unfinished prototype from a game jam than something you'd pay money for. So why does it have an 88 on Metacritic? The game's simple. You control the triangle, you can rotate it around, you just have to avoid the obstacles. There are only 6 places where walls can be at a given distance, which only comes out to 11 permutations. That should get boring really fast, but it doesn't. Why? Well, just wait a minute, I'll tell you, that's the premise of the show. In action games, when a problem or obstacle first appears, the player has a short time window to respond. That window can be divided into 3 parts: the time it takes to perceive an obstacle, the time it takes to decide on a course of action, and the time it takes to accomplish this action. For Super Hexagon, these segments correspond to the time it takes to see where the triangle is relative to the opening, the time it takes to decide which way to move and by how much, and the time it takes to act on that decision, including the time it takes for the triangle to get from point A to point B. This division may seem trivial at first, but it'll be very useful for understanding Super Hexagon and possibly many other action games, because changing up each of these aspects as the challenge increases is important for keeping the player interested. They keep the player stimulated by forcing them to use different parts of their brain. It also gives the player multiple ways to improve, so people with different strengths can leverage them effectively, instead of all but one type of gamer getting stuck, getting frustrated, and giving up. So let's look at how Super Hexagon does this. As you move on to harder difficulties, the game gets faster, but it gets harder in more subtle ways too. The background colors flash instead of fading, the scene whips around left and right, the screen also skews in directions. All of these are designed to test your ability to focus on the task at hand and perceive what you need to do. But the innovation that really prevents Super Hexagon from getting boring isn't introduced until the second difficulty level, Hexagoner. The game puts the rings together in such quick succession that you have no time to perceive or decide where to go, forming a sequence that can only be treated as a single complex obstacle. This adds a huge amount of options for adding to the decision-making challenge. Now, instead of needing to go just left once or right 2 spaces, you have any number of patterns you can add. Hold down left, tap right. The big sequences of obstacles also add the final and most important step, thinking and planning. Forcing the player to stop and think before they hit try again is the best way to keep them interested. Anyone who has had to learn a musical instrument will tell you just practicing the same thing over and over again until your execution improves gets old really fast. Being able to figure a problem out between attempts rebuilds the player's lost confidence and allows them to improve through ways other than brute force. This part of crafting a challenge is the hardest to design because you have to walk a narrow path for it to work. If they're too easy or intuitive, the player will simply breeze through them. But if they're too hard or obtuse, the player won't bother trying to figure them out. They'll just think the game is being unfair. Compare all this to a game like Temple Runner, where there is simply an obstacle and a corresponding action the player needs to take to avoid it, usually triggered by a single smartphone gesture. The only way to create variety is to add a new obstacle or a new avoidance action, or tie the obstacle to an existing action. This system creates a game that's a mile wide but an inch deep. Gameplay that can have tons of different objects and events, but is never more than one obfuscation away from being a series of QuickTime events. And getting away from that is the key to giving any action game replay value, from phone-based casual games to AAA character action. Super Hexagon is elegant, not like a dress, but like an equation. It's so simple, but it has so much more variety and depth than it should, given it's a few shapes on a screen. So there you go. That's how Super Hexagon got turned into an addicting hit from a boring dud with a few deceptively simple design decisions. Oh, and the fact that the music is great doesn't hurt either. Thanks for watching my channel. I really want to try and get videos out more regularly. I already have a few scripts written, so I think my next video will either be about Civilization or Stefan Molyneux. you know, I don't know what people come here for, if they like the video game videos or if they like the politics videos. I guess I'll just alternate and see what people like more. But anyway, thanks for watching again.